This speech is to inform you of the differences and the likenesses between physical and mental abuse. And I'm going to introduce my audience now. These are my coworkers. Everybody say hi.
Hi.
Greetings.
And the one who's here behind the camera.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll get started. As I said, my purpose here is to inform you of the differences and the likenesses between physical and mental abuse. Abuse does not discriminate. It can happen to heterosexual couples, homosexual couples. It can happen to all ethnic backgrounds, ages. It can happen to all economic levels. In fact, 89% of all domestic violence victims are women. That does include men, though. Men are abused also. They are physically abused, mentally abused. I am Melissa Trimble, and I am a victim of domestic violence. Physical abuse is the use of physical force to gain complete control over its victim. Emotional abuse's aim is to chip away at that person's individual psyche and their sense of self-worth. I am a victim of emotional abuse. I am not a victim of physical abuse. Most women never see the truth behind the lies. What do you think of when you think of domestic violence? Tammy?
Hitting, that kind of thing.
Okay. Johnny?
Twofold, putting you down verbally, talking about you, and the physical aspect of it too.
Mm-hmm. And I want to get a man's opinion here.
The
Meryl?
movie The Burning Bed.
The Burning Bed? That was an excellent movie. That was an excellent movie. Well, there are two major forms of abuse. There's physical and mental, like I stated before. Physical abuse is used to gain complete control over its victim. Abusers do not play fair. They use guilt, fear, shame, and intimidation. They may threaten you, hurt you, or even threaten the ones you love. Many people suffer from mental abuse also. Mental abuse is often minimized and even overlooked by even those people who are being abused. Mental abuse includes yelling, name-calling, blaming, and shaming, isolation, intimidation, and controlling behavior. Physical abuse can leave long-lasting physical scars, but mental abuse can leave everlasting emotional damage. So I'm going to give you an example now of physical abuse. Kind of give you a little background story, and I know that I've talked to you a little bit about it before prior. My best friend Liz, she was murdered in 1997. And this is my best friend Liz. I'm going to show a picture of her, if I can get a hold of it. This is her. And her son, right here, is about 3. When she was murdered, he was 7. She was murdered by her boyfriend. Okay? How I met her was in 1995. We became instant friends. I had just moved to Reynosa, New Mexico. And she lived right next door to me. And we just clung on to each other because I didn't know anybody and she really didn't know anybody. And I was like, wow, this is great. You know, I found a friend. Well, we started talking to each other and got to know each other. And I started, going out when I would walk to work. Her son would be out at the bus stop. And the first night that I saw the abuse happen, I heard this like weird thumping sound. And I was like, what is going on? And it was coming from right behind the head of my bed. And my bed was up against a window, which my car was on the other side of that window. And I kept thinking to myself, how can this be? What's going on? And I peeked through the blinds, and she is being held by her neck by him up against her car, and he is slamming her body into the door of the car. I threw open the window and I said, you better drop her right now. And he said, why don't you come out here, I'll kill you too. That is when I knew something had to be done. This is true physical abuse, and I've seen it for the first time with my own eyes. I go running outside And he goes running away, scurrying off in the night. And I pick her up out of the gravel, and I take her to the hospital, and we were there for hours, and the cops were like, you know, you've really got to press charges or we can't do anything to this guy. And she turned around and she goes, nope, I love him. Now, I'm going to tell you some other things, and it might be kind of hard to hear, but I have to do it for myself. This is Chief Bourne of the Ruidoso Police Department, and he's the one that investigated her murder. This is the house where she lived, next door to me. Right here. And when the night that she was murdered, she had actually, well, I don't know if she was murdered that night, but the night she went missing, let's put it that way. She had come to my new apartment because I had moved away. I couldn't take the sounds every night. I just couldn't take them. And I told my husband, I said, we've got to go. That night when we moved, she came up to the apartment and she said to me, thank you very, very much. I just wanted to tell you thank you. And she gave me this ring.
Oh, wow.
Right here. And she said, I want you to have this. And I said, oh, I'll wear it. I'll wear it for you, Liz. I'll wear it for you. She said, thanks so much. 2 hours later, she went missing. She was never seen again, and she was murdered by her boyfriend in the house. And this is the desert where she was buried.
He buried her?
He buried her. He strangled her and then took her lifeless body down to Tularosa, New Mexico, which is about 35 miles away, and buried her in the desert in the back of his mama's house.
What?
This is her grave. This is how she was found.
Is that her body?
Yes.
Oh my God.
This is her grave. See how shallow it is? And this is 3 months after she went missing.
In the back of his mother's house?
Yeah. And it's going to get a little bit more graphic here, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's so sad.
But this is her.
The body deteriorated that fast?
Yes. With the heat of the desert. And finally, this is my friend Liz. So if you can do anything to help people that are victims of abuse so they don't end up like this, I would. I go into my story, but I think I've gone over time now. So maybe next time I'll go into my story a little bit more. But I was a victim of emotional abuse for 12 years. And I didn't know anything about it until the last 2 years of my marriage. I didn't recognize it. I didn't see all the little nuances and little lies he told me. And finally, when I was December 19th, 2008, I had gone into a gallbladder attack, went to the hospital, came out. The very day that I came out, he said, you're going to have to go to work the next day. I lost my job. I said to him, I said, oh, really? Okay. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay. I put on my coat, 3 feet of snow outside. I trudged my way down towards the bus stop, and all of a sudden, something was telling me something. My leg slipped out from underneath me and broke in 3 places. And as I lay there, being pelted in the face by snow, I thought to myself, what are you trying to do to me? Right? I just kept looking up at God going, what are you trying to do? And after that happened, I had to go to the hospital again. This is twice in a week. Okay, I come home, they tell me they can't do anything with my leg, they have to put in a soft cast, I may have to be operated on. I get home, 2 days later, I can't breathe. I have to use the restroom. My husband's trying to help me into the restroom, and I can't breathe. I'm laboring, very hard to breathe. I get into the bathroom, I grab his hand, and I said, don't let me die. And I pass out. I'm on the floor. I come to, and he's standing over top of me, and I said, I need the ambulance. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't talk. He goes, "We can't afford that, Melissa." And he took the chair, shoved it outside the door, and closed the door on me and went into the other room. And that's why I knew he was going to let me die on that floor. I had a broken leg. I'm laying there. He was going to let me die. Finally, I get enough courage up and enough gumption to turn over, open the door, and crawl my way to the phone. I get to the phone. When I get to the phone, I call the ambulance. I said, "I need the ambulance. I can't talk." They're like, "We're on our way. You're going to have to go meet us downstairs. There's too much snow." But this time there was 4 feet of snow. I crawl my way to the door. I grab my coat. I put my coat on. Mind you, I've got a broken leg in 3 places. And I slid down the stairs 3 flights to the ambulance. I get to the hospital. They tell me I've got 56 pulmonary embolisms that have just exploded in my lungs. And I'm lucky to be alive. Do you think my husband called? No. Do you think he called to check to see if I was even alive? No. We couldn't afford that. And that's when I knew that I had to do something different with my life. And I went into an abuse shelter. That's the last time I saw him. I left everything I owned, went to an abuse shelter until I was well enough to come here. I gave myself the greatest Christmas present in the world, myself back. And though Liz's situation is completely different than mine, it could have turned out exactly the same.
Yes, it could.
And that's the difference between physical and mental abuse.
Yeah. That's great.